Okay. Good. Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. The topic that we're discussing at the end of this session basically summarizes what everybody else has been speaking about. And I think it has a lot of relevance because a lot of times as ophthalmic surgeons we operate on patients who have a pre-existing dry eye, and the surgical maneuvers that we do on the table do disturb the tear film, and some of our surgical maneuvers result with the patient having a postoperative dry eye. And this is important because tears have an important trophic influence on healing, and in the absence of tears you can have problems with the postoperative course. We also understand today that a good tear film is extremely important for good vision, and considering that we do a lot of LASIK surgery and we use premium IOLs, this is again very important. It's been clearly described that these symptoms of tear deficiency can affect quality of life issues like reading, computer use and driving. And in an article in 2003, the impact on the patient of a moderate degree of dry eye was equivalent to that of moderate angina. In another study in 2011, when they looked at patients presenting for routine cataract surgery, approximately 2/3 had a disturbed BUT and 3/4 had fluorescein staining, meaning that there was some degree of subclinical or actually clinical dryness in their eyes as well. Whenever you have tear problems, this can result either from a decrease in tear secretion, it can result from an increase in the tear loss or evaporation, or from an alteration in the retention of tears on the surface, and in the context of surgery, this often results from a disruption of the afferent arc of the feedback loop, or from an altered functionality of the tear film. This is exaggerated by the perioperative use of topical medicines about which we just heard, many of which can have toxic impact on the surface, the denervation that you cause by your surgical incisions, the exposure to the increasingly powerful microscope lights that we use, and from surgery-induced ocular surface inflammation and surface contour alterations. So when you look at a patient with dryness and you look at the preoperative risk factors, these could include increasing age, female sex and menopause, the presence of underlying systemic disease, typically rheumatoid arthritis or systemic lupus, pre-existing LASIK surgery, patients who work in environments where there's increasing desiccation of the eye, which a lot of these computer users do, and those who are on a variety of medications. Two of the commonest are anticholinergics and antihistaminics, and Madam gave us a big list of the other ones as well. Now, when you're looking at these patients, this was an interesting sign that was described by David Harton in the journal Cornea, and he called this the ocular surface stress test. And basically it means if you have somebody who's gone through a routine eye exam for about an hour or so, where you do topical anesthesia, do an applanation tonometry, and then you dilate them, and by the time you see him an hour and a half later, if you see this kind of staining on the corneal surface, it means that he has a compromised surface and you need to be extra careful when you operate. The other thing that you should do in people with dryness before you operate is to look at the surface staining patterns with lissamine green or with rose bengal, and if you see this kind of extensive conjunctival staining, then obviously you need to take some special care when you're operating. Dryness or sicca is almost always accompanied by infections of the lid margins with staphylococcus or an increase in seborrheic tendencies, and these kind of people often have unhealthy lids, and this is something that you must pay attention to before you do any kind of surgery if you do not want to have infections. You can of course supplement the tears preoperatively. Ideally you want to use tears with a longer retention time on the surface, preferably the more viscous ones. You can use the gel forming solutions that retain better on the surface, and as was described, you'd like to use tears with the disappearing or the gentle preservatives, or ideally with no preservatives. And of course we heard about osmoprotection from Rishi, and you can use that to decrease epithelial desiccation as well. If you've tried all this and you still have significant dryness, it's fairly simple to put in a silicone plug. These can either be punctal plugs or intracanalicular plugs like this one, the Herrick design, which is a silicone intracanalicular plug, and this will retain the tears on the surface and help make your surgery a more gentle experience. Unfortunately, people with dryness on the eye can also have a host of attendant other problems, and these are examples of people in whom you may have to do surgery. And this is somebody who has a cataract, who has extensive ocular pemphigoid. This is the only eye with dryness and surface problems, So you do a corneal replacement solution, a lamellar keratoplasty, things look fairly well. A lateral tassorrhaphy has been added for the dryness. But unfortunately, many of these people with underlying systemic problems also need systemic immunosuppression. And in case the patient does not use the immunosuppression, as in this lady who stopped it for some reason, you can get these kind of corneal problems in these dry eyes. So once you treat this, you can then get a quiet scar, and then you can proceed with your cataract surgery, and we'll discuss the little nuances of that a bit later. So this is after cataract surgery, and the patient has a reasonable outcome. This is somebody with xeroderma pigmentosum, and these people, in addition to the dryness, also have limbal and lid problems. And after cataract corneal transplant, this is the kind of tumor appearance that you get, the surface neoplastic changes. You can use mitomycin C topically to get rid of the tumor and then proceed with your cataract surgery, and that can give you a good outcome as well. Now, some of these patients with dryness will often have limbal insufficiencies as well. You can see this extensive corneal thinning and scarring. Unfortunately, this patient had partial limbal function preserved in the upper limbal region, and therefore you can then do a deep lamellar keratoplasty to get this all right, and then do a cataract surgery using a supratemporal approach with a phaco approach and get rid of the cataract as well. People with dryness often have scleritis as part of their disease spectrum, and in scleritis the challenges will be that you have a very thin and bulgy sclera, so you need to know where to operate. You can have significant astigmatic changes because of the limbal stretch that this produces, but by paying attention to the tenets that we'll see in another slide, you can get rid of the cataract with reasonably good outcomes. And finally, this is somebody with advanced Stevens-Johnson syndrome. You can see the extensive keratinization and dryness. Here, if this person doesn't want an osteo- or odontokeratoprosthesis, then you can just do a temporal incision, small incision surgery and get rid of the cataract alone. So intraoperatively, you need to make sure that you've already dealt with the trichiasis and the lagophthalmos. Be prepared for a very limited exposure. Even something as simple as inserting a speculum in these eyes can be difficult because of the symblepharon and the phoneal shortening. There will be suboptimal visibility because of the corneal changes, and you may have to operate with your incision in unfamiliar sites and not in your usual choice. You may have to decide between your routine topical anesthesia vis-a-vis a peribulbar block in these eyes, and if you're using topical povidone iodine, be very careful to limit the exposure time on these compromised surfaces. Use as little light as you can, avoid inadvertent trauma to the ocular surface, and keep using methyl cellulose to protect the surface. So no matter you do all this and do a good surgery, you can still get these kind of problems in the postoperative period. This is a Dellen, and if you don't manage it appropriately in the early phases, this can go on to serious problems as well. Now, this is a lady with rheumatoid arthritis who had a small incision surgery elsewhere and ended up 2 weeks later with this kind of a surface with the cornea melting away. So here you need a combination of oral steroids, you need some topical diluted steroids, you need some antibiotics, you need doxycycline, you need vitamin C, you need a punctal plug to increase the tear film, you need plenty of tears and lubrication, and then you can get the surface to heal medically itself. Now this is a gentleman who presented 10 days after LASIK elsewhere. Basically, after LASIK, he developed this lesion. The surgeon was trying to treat him with about 4 or 5 medications, including NSAIDs, and he's already got a bandage contact lens on. Basically, this is somebody who's a long-term contact lens user. You can see the vascularization from that. The pre-existing dryness was not recognized, and therefore, when you took off the BCL and stained him, you see the rough, irregular epithelium. All you need is to improve the tear film, put in a little diluted steroids, and in about a couple of weeks, you can get the eye to heal quite nicely with no staining. So the postoperative options you have in these people, if you get into problems, would be tear substitutes. You could do plugs to preserve tears. You have topical cyclosporine. And obviously you want to be very careful with preservatives whenever you're using topical medications on these eyes. You need to look at the lid hygiene, and this can be addressed with doxycycline and omega-3 fatty acids. And to heal epithelial defects, you can do patching, bandage contact lenses, or cyanoacrylate glue. Oral immunosuppressive agents and steroids will be needed in those with underlying systemic diseases as well. And finally, if things go beyond all this, you may need a tassorrhaphy and corneal surgery as well. So finally, just to conclude, you can get people like this with Stevens and extremely unhappy eyes. You can see the discharge and the trichiasis, the lid changes, the corneal changes, bilateral cataract, extremely poor vision, cannot walk. Just following the tenets that we saw, you can get them to be very comfortable with good cataract surgery and reasonable vision. So the dysfunctional tear syndrome, as you've been hearing all morning, is a complex entity, and in order to treat it properly, you need to understand the tear film changes that occur post-surgery. You need to identify people at risk and start your treatment preoperatively itself. You need to follow certain tenets of surgery intraoperatively. And finally, in these patients, postoperative care and follow-up and prompt management is even more important. Thank you very much.